Welcome back to another video, and just like the video's title says, this is the full guide to assess the macroeconomic conditions and whether or not you should consider this area for investment. And so in this next 10 to 20 minutes, I'm going to give you so much secrets away, so much information away that you should be able to assess the economic potential of an area, and you should be able to come to the very same conclusions that I come to in my videos. And if you're wondering why I'm giving this all away for completely for free, while buyer's agents and other property gurus charge you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, it's simply because I believe in not gatekeeping information. And I believe in that slogan so much that I'm actually releasing a book called No Gatekeeping Property, which is literally $9.99 on pre-order. And just to put that in perspective, that costs much less than a KFC box. And without further ado, let's get into the first metric. And I've made this point very clear across every single suburb analysis video I've made, and it's simply about economic diversity. And for this video, I'm going to use Townsville as my case study, and I might use other suburbs as well. And if you're wondering, where do I go to assess the economic viability of an area? There are two main websites that I personally use, which are publicly available and completely free. One of them is called Remplan, and you might have seen this already previously in my other videos. And the other one is called ID Community. Now, there is a caveat. This website is not available for every single location out there. Same with Community ID. However, for most locations, it's publicly available information that you can access. Now, you may be wondering, why is economic diversity so important? And it's as simple as this. An area that is reliant on a single industry like mining will experience volatility if that sector slows down or collapses. You need to be investing in locations with diverse economies which offer great stability and long-term potential. We don't want to be investing in a region or location that is reliant on one or two industries. And here, if we go Townsville and we go industries, and within industries, we simply scroll down, we can see just how diverse Townsville is as an industry, and hence why it's so popular. We can see it delves into healthcare, public administration, education, retail trade, construction, manufacturing. There is so much job diversification that you can clearly see it is not reliant on one industry. And you may be also wondering where else I can see this economic diversity. You can also go onto the Australian Bureau of Statistics website, where it breaks down its occupation and economic diversity. And all you have to do is simply do Control F and occupation, and you can see the types of occupations that are currently there. Professionals, 18%. Community and personal service workers, 15%. Laborers, 10%. Machine operators, 8%. And if you scroll down a tiny bit further, you can see the industry of employment, which is hospitals, defense, primary education, etc. So that's another simple way that you can look at it. The third way you can actually analyze this information is simply by going to Community ID. I like to go to the economic profile, and within the economic profile, you can go to local employment, employment by industry. Within employment by industry, I like to just do the number of the highest to the lowest. And once again, you can confirm that economic diversity. You can see here healthcare, public administration, education training, accommodation, manufacturing, etc. You can see that it's economically diverse and not on a singular industry. And I'm going to show you an example of one that is dependent on a single industry. And let's look at Kalgoorlie Bold NF. Now, people who are in the investing space already know that this is a mining town, but just to prove my point, if you scroll down to occupation, where am I? You can see that gold ore mining is a primary occupation, which is 20.4%. Now, primary education could be for the kids that live in that area, as well as that hospitals is probably dependent on the fact that there are miners in that area. And these are just downstream services that are attached to the gold ore mining, which is not what we want to see. We want to see very diverse economies. It is so important that we do this. If it is not diverse, I do not invest. That is my hard rule. There are other people who have higher risk tolerance. That's not me. So now that I've explained economic diversity, what is the next factor? And before I go into the next factors, if you are struggling to comprehend this data or you need mentorship and guidance, I have a private community, which is $35 a month. It's $1 a day where I will be able to give you tailored advice, feedback, and mentorship to any questions you have. And there's a bunch of reviews there for you guys to actually read now as well. So you can actually go there and assess whether or not you want to join the community. There is so much value jam packed into it. It's once again a simple no-brainer if you're trying to invest in property in 2025. Now, you may be wondering, what is the next most important metric? And that metric is the gross regional product, or the GRP. The GRP actually reflects the overall health of a region's economy. And the reason that this is so important is that because a strong economic output supports job creation, infrastructure development, and population growth, all which contribute directly to property demand. So this is a very, very important metric. And if you're wondering, where exactly do I find this information? Well, that's super easy. You just go back to Remplan and you go here and you see gross regional product. We want to see the GRP increasing, and as we can see in 2021, 15.8 billion, and in 2022, 19.8, and it continues to rise in the upcoming years. Now, if I was to invest in Townsville back in 2019, I would be particularly concerned because its GRP was declining. So that could suggest to me that something has gone wrong within the local economy, or an industry has collapsed, which is contributing to the declining GRP. But a rising GRP is a very, very good indicator of a growing economy. Now, where else can I find this information? If we go to economic indicators up here, or economic value, you can see gross regional product. You can also go to gross product up here, which is a bit easier to comprehend in terms of the graph. And we can see that in the past couple of years, once again, the data reflects the same. It has been increasing, which is what we want to see. So that is the data metric number 2 of the macroeconomics that we want to see. Now, there is also a second point I want to make about economic output. Now, as a local region, we have looked at the GRP, the gross regional product, and we can see what are the good trends and what are the bad trends. However, I also sometimes like to see, when we go back to industries, I like to see the actual economic output of certain locations. And if I click on output over here, I can see what industries actually put out the most output. So within Townsville, we actually saw that the largest employer was the healthcare industry. But in terms of the economic output, we can see that manufacturing actually puts out the most amount, followed by public administration, then construction, and healthcare is down in 5th place. So that's also something I like to cross-reference. So I hope you're following along so far. Now, what is the third important metric that you should be looking at? And that is unemployment. Low unemployment rates suggest a strong local economy and stable demand for housing. Areas with high or rising unemployment may struggle to attract buyers and tenants, and this could affect property values and rental yields. And where do you go check this out? Like always, ID community, you go to economic indicators, go to unemployment, and we can actually see the trend of unemployment. And as you can see here, we can see that Townsville has had a rising unemployment since 2023. Now, that is not a good indicator for us, and we need to investigate further about what is happening within the local economy that is causing this unemployment. And I want to be very clear, just because one metric is not favorable to us, that does not mean we don't invest in that location. We always must take trade-offs and always take certain risks when investing. And when we have a good GRP and we have a slightly rising unemployment rate, then we can possibly look to trade that off and then still invest into that area. Now, where else can you find the unemployment rate? You can find it on, type in unemployed, and you can say the unemployment rate is 5%. And you can use the benchmark of the state average, which is 5.4%, and there's less unemployment in Townsville, which is a wonderful sign to see. I know it's rising, but it's still a good sign for us. Now, hopefully you've been following on so far, and I've gone through 3 important metrics already. And if you want some sort of further due diligence and analysis and a deep dive report, I have that for you right here, where you can actually purchase a comprehensive deep dive report of the macroeconomics and microeconomics of an LGA and an area, readily available for you, so that you can take it and make a decision about whether or not you want to invest in that area. This is a super duper comprehensive report, and you can also download a preview before you purchase that report as well. So make sure you go check that out. But let's continue on with the lesson. Now, we're going to move on to cans. And the reason I want to use cans is because it's a good example, and I'll show you another example as well. But the next metric is building approvals and developable land supply. And this is an extremely important metric to do your further due diligence analysis, and that is because it directly ties into supply. Why? Because more houses means there's more supply, and if there is no demand, then more supply and less demand will cause house prices to flatline or to drop. So what should you be doing to analyze this? The first thing to do is go onto the maps. When you go onto the maps, and I'm going to choose Edmonton for this example, we can see that there are large pockets of land that can be developed in the future. We can see this pocket here and this pocket on the right-hand side that can be developed into the future. This means there is an abundant amount of developable land. However, you need to look at this in combination with the building approvals. There is no point looking at this metric in isolation. It's always a combination of metrics that need to paint a narrative about what is happening in an area. When we look at Edmonton, and we scroll down, this is on HTag, by the way, I have a discount code, use it if you want to. So when we scroll down to the building approvals, you can see that there is 64 new homes that have been approved. Now, generally speaking, it takes about 12 to 18 months for a property to go from a building approval to an actual home constructed. So in this next 12 to 18 months, we could possibly see 64 new homes in this area. That isn't a very high amount, but that is how you can do deeper due diligence regarding the building approvals. And just for reference, I mentioned this in another video as well, I like to see less than 4% in terms of building approvals. And I'm going to show you another example. Now, I've made a video previously about Melton, and I'm going to just go over this point very quickly for you. But in Melton, we have an extremely large amount of building approvals within this area, almost 4.9%. So 4,000 new homes are actually coming into this Melton area, which is not good for us as a property investor because there is an abundant amount of supply coming into this area. Now, there is always this argument of that there is an immense amount of population growth coming into that area, but that risk of 4,000 new homes coming in to dampen the supply is not good for us as property investors. So this is another metric that you must do further due diligence on. Now, metric number 5, what is it? It's flood zones, bushfire zones, heritage zones. Why am I using Shepparton as an example? Because it's a really good example to do it on. It's as simple as that. When we invest into a location, we need to be very wary about flood zones, bushfire zone, heritage zone. And I'm not just talking about from the planning perspective, I'm talking about the on-the-ground sentiment as well. You need to discuss with your property manager about the risks of flooding, about bushfires, and about other heritage zones or areas where you should not be investing in that specific regional location. And this is important because when we go to sell that investment property down the line, we want to sell it to an owner occupier who would most likely pay more for that property. And an owner occupier is not going to be interested or will be less interested in a property that is located on a flood zone, bushfire, or a heritage zone. So it's very important you do this due diligence. And on Shepparton, if you go to Vic Plan, which is a free resource, it's a government site, all we have to do is go to layers and you can actually look at land subject to inundation. We look at our overlays and we can see a vast amount of Shepparton actually within a flood zone. And all these pink zones are where I would like to invest in property in Shepparton specifically. Obviously, you have to do this for other locations as well. You can also look at bushfire zones. If I just type in bushfire here, if I can spell, we can look at bushfire management as well as bushfire zones. The management overlay is not as important, but we need to look at the bushfire prone areas, which once again takes out more areas for us as well. And then we can also look at heritage zone. Click here, click heritage overlay, and we can see heritage zones here. So we should be avoiding these specific areas when investing into these locations. And that is metric number 5, which is further due diligence at the macro level, which is very, very important to do when choosing a good investment property. And this video is actually getting quite long. And so if you want to see a part 2 of this video with even more macroeconomic metrics that you want me to run through, make sure you put down in the comments below, please do a part 2 and I will do it for you. But now that you understand some of the core and most important macroeconomics metrics that you need to be looking at, you now need to go in and actually select the right suburb to invest into. So you need to go check this video out right here to help you out with that.